Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Ofer here. You're somebody that's been really trying to pioneer in a lot of different categories, but now you're really focusing on how to improve communication between people and improve the ability for customer service to happen through this type of method. And you've been involved in a bunch of different startups before, an internal startup at Google that you wound up exiting to Google, which is interesting, of course. And you're taking your talents now to really building your own thing. You've got great venture capital behind you. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thanks so much, Ben. Great to be here.
Awesome. So where did your passion for entrepreneurship and just technology in general, like where did this kind of begin? Was it something you had when you were young, when you were a kid? How did you realize you could do something in this category?
So, I wasn't one of those kids that sold lemonade in the street corner, but I did have a relative in Israel where I grew up that had his own business, and I looked up to him, and I thought that was inspiring, like to create something out of nothing and employ all these people. And so that was the original inspiration. But even like in college early on, I still didn't like connect the dots, like that entrepreneurship was the thing for me. I finally did sell lemonade, working for the Honor Society at the University of Michigan. Uh, and Larry Page was the president of that Honor Society when I was there. He was 2 years ahead of me. We were selling lemonade and coffee to like engineers that were just waking up. Uh, in college, though, I did start taking entrepreneurship classes and started leaning into it. And soon after, I did my first startup with my brother, and yeah, and haven't looked back. I've done a bunch. I've sold 3 startups since, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it.
100%. So, early on, I think you were a VC partner at Big Red Ventures. And it was
Mm.
like one of the places that you started. Why did you kind of decide to go into the VC space and how impactful was that for you understanding what goes into building startups and how to get them off the ground?
Yeah, so entrepreneurship has different kinds of roles you can play. You can be the operator creating the company or the investor enabling lots of founders. And when I was doing my MBA program at Cornell, they had an opportunity to experience what it's like to be a VC. And I recommend for anyone to like do hands-on stuff because it's so informative versus just like sitting in the classroom. So this was an opportunity to like be hands on, and to this day, I'm still investing more as an angel. I never quite pursued a VC career because I enjoy too much building startups and being hands on.
So one of your earliest startups, I think it was your first one, was Sendori, and you created this company, and it was really trying to take advantage of giving more insight into like domain based advertising. So how
Mm-hmm.
did this kind of idea come about, and what did it take to build this out? It was pretty new at the time. The web was pretty early on. What went into that?
Yeah, so when I was in business school, Yahoo came to like try to recruit folks, and they talked about this domain business, which they had a significant amount of revenue from, undeveloped domains that they would park with ads. And I right away thought that's not like an efficient model. You should just go directly to a real website that's applicable. If someone's typing in austrianstamps.com, go to eBay and show that page with Austrian stamps. And in fact, that's what we did. eBay was our customer. They were they gave us 3 million keywords, and we would match over 1 million domains that we had in our network to them. So it was a business that was relevant at the time. Like today, it's not a business anymore because no one types in random domains into the URL. But at the time, it was a good business. We sold it to Ask.com, owned by IAC, and it was a good outcome.
How did the transaction, like how did X.com, coming to buy from you guys, like, how did that happen? Did you go through a whole formal process, or they just reached out? And why were they the ideal partner?
Yeah, there's different ways to get to an exit, and I'll start with there's 2 reasons why you might want to sell. First, someone gives you a price that you're worth in 2 years. So like they're giving you a price in 2 years, and you don't want to take the risk to that's involved to build your company up to that valuation. The other reason is if you're starting to plateau, and that's what we were doing, starting to plateau. The business was not growing, and so we had 2 bidders for the business, and Ask ended up winning the bidding. The way they got engaged is because we had actually an advisor from Ask,
Hmm.
and so they knew what was going on, and then they were excited by the company. So that helped, and helped them also win the bidding.
Hmm. How different was it for you, like running your business inside of a different company at that point? And
Mm.
why did you decide, hey, I got to get back into the startup world and then launch and found this Style Labs?
Yeah. So yeah, so I've sold three startups, two to Google, one to Ask.com, and one of those transactions was internal within Google. There's an incubator, Area 120, and we'll probably talk about that. Each experience was different. The company you sell to um, can either have you continue to run it, or they find something new for you to do, and it varies. And so each time was a bit different. Um, that when I sold to Google, that was more a place where I wanted to hang out longer, and I did 7 years. With Ask.com, after a year or so, I ended up going on a world trip for a year to 24 countries. I always thought I would do
Wow.
that for selling a startup. So that one was a shorter stint after the sale at the company. But at Google, I got to be an entrepreneur again. So I got to do two startups in their incubator. And that was, I got to do the role I enjoy within like a large company.
Hmm. So for you've been pretty good at getting like large name customers to be your clients pretty early on in your businesses. Like you were able to get Groupon and LifeLock pretty early on, and a bunch of different other companies. Like what kind of goes into how do you pitch these brands to take a bet on you in a sense and a risk on a new company and what you're building and that and what goes into that pitch that really convinces them to join on.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was doing my first startup, I got the feedback that I'm like the worst person, and I shouldn't be selling, like in selling, and that is maybe something people should consider. To always have a growth mindset. Uh, Today, I can say I've sold some of the largest AI deals ever, over $500 million in deals I structured and led for contact center AI. So that was part of like the Google internal incubator work. Yeah, and before that, yeah, selling into Groupon and those kind of companies. So I've learned through a lot of like hard work how to do that, and it's a mix of winning the hearts and minds of
Hmm.
potential customers. You win the hearts by having amazing demos that really are compelling and show a vision of the future. And you win their minds by having data showing compelling ROI and benefits. To close 300 million plus deals for contact center AI at Google, I end up creating pretty detailed ROI projections over multiple years, and we, together with the client, optimized and got to a shared view of the future. So there's a lot. Yeah, that could be a whole
Hmm.
multi-hour discussion how to do the art of the large deal. But yeah, the summary is hearts and minds.
Hearts and minds. So you were like this, entrepreneur at Google. You have a lot of resources there. How much of a competitive advantage does it really give you to build something that you because you were doing it inside of Google? Like, what type of access of resources do you really have as somebody that's in the company trying to build something to make something great that maybe you
Yeah.
wouldn't have elsewhere?
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast. I now lead Tomato AI, Tomato. We change accents in real time as someone speaks. They sound like themselves, but not as heavily accented. And now I don't have the Google name behind me, whereas before I did. Now, here's the thing: Google gives you access. So the Google name opened doors, but we still needed to win over customers and do pilots and show results. We had bake-offs against capable other vendors, and we had to win um, outright based on our solution. So I would say, like, now that I'm outside of the mothership, outside of Google, running Tomato I use my personal brand to open doors and connections. This is my third contact center AI startup, so I also have lots of people in the industry, and so I use that to get things started. But as always, you need to have impressive demos, impressive pilots, and you take the steps needed to get to a deal.
Mhm. So, now you're building your a different type of startup, And how did you identify with Tomato? Like, how did you identify this problem? Why specifically this problem? And because it seems like it's been going on for a long time that, not everyone can communicate with somebody and they have someone from overseas, handling customer service and no one's really decided to fix it. People just outsource it. Why have you taken on this issue, something that you want to fix? And what type of ROI do you think companies can really get from having this fixed?
Yeah. So both my co-founder James and I came from Google, where we worked on contact center AI there. So we have experience in the space. And James had this idea: what if you were selling wine? What if you had a French accent? Would that change at all, like the results? So that was the initial idea, and we grew it from there. Um, we what we're realizing is there's a ton of issues that could be addressed with AI around speech, and when you're speaking to an offshore agent, unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to follow what they're saying, and um, sometimes there's bias people have, unfortunately, against certain accents, and so your internet's out, you're already stressed. What if there was like this magic button and you can make them sound more like what you're used to? So all of us at the company have some sort of accent. Mine's pretty subtle by now, but we're very sensitive to the culture implications. We in fact love accents, but we think in certain situations when it's like a support call, sales call, there could be a benefit to this kind of technology, and that's what we're seeing. So there's an ROI for support related to improved customer satisfaction, reduced call times, less callbacks. These are common metrics that they care about. And then sales, more revenue, more close rates, all that can be improved. There's also, like, if you step back and think about the implications on humanity, being able to more clearly communicate with people around the world will create a ton of jobs. So this is related to the future of work trend that a lot of people care about. So people can get better pay, better jobs. They're capable people, but are just hard to understand. And this opens up like lots of markets for them.
Mhm. So are you able to share, like, go for like any maybe some like case studies or different like things you've had with clients that they haven't been able to they haven't been able to handle this situation correctly, and then now your system's implemented and it's much better for them, or like can you maybe share some of the improvements that have occurred because of what you've created?
Yeah. So here's like another lessons for entrepreneurs: patience and persistence. So we're a deep tech company. It takes time to build the initial tech. We're a year and 8 months in, raised $10 million, and we're just now getting a first version working well enough that we're going to start pilots in about a month. And so I've lined up a lot of companies ready to test of different sizes, including the biggest offshoring companies. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of like work that got into getting the first version to work. That's also the moat. It helps us stay ahead of others that might want to come into the space, just because it's a lot of R&D that we had to do, original R&D and models, AI models. So yeah, so we're just in Q2 coming up, going to start having more concrete case studies we can share.
Mhm. It's exciting.
Yeah,
It's going to be great.
yeah,
Awesome. So how helpful have these investors over been to you? Like you want to bring on strategic investors. You have the experience. You and your partners have the experience in this space.
yeah.
How have these investors been helpful, not just from a capital standpoint, but also from a building standpoint?
Yeah, so when raising money, ideally you want to take money from sophisticated investors that know what they're doing. We've raised over 2 rounds, and our leads were Point72 and Jazz Ventures. Both of them have over $1 billion in assets under management, professional firms that have been very helpful with things like hiring and just general advice, strategic advice as we move forward with this company. There's been other investors like Cardamon and Tribe Capital and other ones, Recursive Ventures. So yeah, you just want to get smart people on your team that you respect and can give you advice along the way, and that's what we've had.
Hmm. So why is this like space overall, this like, this communication space, and why has it been something besides the fact that you had an accent? Why is it something that's really passionate to you to be in?
I just feel like as humans, our ability to communicate well is how ideas are created and how everything around us happens. And so if I can make communications like that much better around the world, we can't even think about the downstream implications. So we're starting with call centers because there's a acute pain there. If you can close the gap between offshore performance with onshore, that's huge. But there's next an opportunity to do this for any call like this for communications, for gaming, for creator economy, where you're doing live kind of streaming, anywhere where someone's speaking, and you can improve, let's say, a conversation between someone in Scotland and someone in, let's say, India could be made easier on both sides with this kind of tech. You can just go much smoother.
So you see this like being built into like phones and and other types of communication devices.
Yeah, yeah. One day, just like noise removal has become ubiquitous, this will be an option. Eventually, where we're going with this is we want to be a platform where you can A/B test and find the best voice, best accent per conversation. And so, yeah, this will be like table stakes. You won't even like think twice about it, especially like in the call center space. It'll be a minimum requirement for running a call center to have this optimize the voice, the accent for the conversation. And there's all kinds of ironic insights you might get over time. For example, it's been found that men in Texas somehow respond best to female voices in the Northeast. Like that's what works best. And unless you did extensive testing, you might not come across that. And maybe it's because they respect the voice more or whatever it is. You're going to be able to find those kind of insights and improve ROI.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of avenues that what you're building can be applied to. Communications is the backbone of society, it's the backbone of the world, um, and definitely things get confused in communication if you can't articulate it correctly, if they can't understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of what you're building, it's like how does it really like how does the AI really work? Is what you're doing? You're trying to like take this speech someone's saying, and then you try to identify the words, and then take those words and then convert it, or the letters convert it, and the sounds convert it to something different. Someone else is supposed to like. How does this technology really work?
So first of all, there's two things happening. One is voice cloning. The other is accent. The field is called accent conversion. We call it accent softening. It's more specific to what we do. We reduce the level of accent. Um, Voice cloning is a more well-established field, more research out there, but we're doing some unique things there. We're doing zero shot, meaning there's no pre-training for any new voice. It just works out the gate. We
Oh,
generate a voice that sounds like yours, but with less accent. So the generating your voice is voice cloning. And separately, there's a whole field of accent conversion. There's not many people in it. So we had to do a lot of original IP, intellectual property there. There you're more at the phoneme level, trying to figure out what do I do? Are they saying tomato or tamale? Uh, and what you do is different if it's one word or the next. And so you need a bit of a context window to know. A typical word in English is 400 milliseconds. So, you need to like work within those kind of time frames to figure out what to do. Um, we also will have a version where you can sound like someone else because some companies will want that kind of solution, and the voice, the accent softening will still be there. So there's different variations. It's speech to speech models. You never go to text. If you go to text, you end up introducing transcription errors, latency, and also you lose prosody, which is like the melody of the voice. So you remain in the speech realm.
mhm. Have you thought about like applying this to like um, to different types of music or movies or like other forms of like entertainment? Like, what are your thoughts on
Yeah. The whole creator economy is something that we could look at down the line. Right now, for real time voice AI, The more immediate opportunity in large markets are the contact center space first, and then meetings. Those are the two big ones where there's a ton of conversations happening daily. If you look at, I've worked with some Fortune 10 companies before that had over 100 million calls each a year. And so it's massive volumes that you can tap into and help with. And some of these companies are like mostly offshore. Like one of them was two-thirds offshore, tens of thousands of agents answering calls. So yeah, the scale is massive, and those are the kind of companies eventually that we want to work with. We're going to be working our way up to those.
So just on a bit of like a separate topic, you've done a bunch of different angel like investments and just
Mhm.
investments overall in Palantir and Lyft and Anthropic, et cetera. Like what's kind of like what do you look for over when you're trying to do an investment? Like what are some of the things that remain constant that help identify, for you to make a decision?
It used to be that I did more early stage investments like seed, and sometimes those worked out. But I've mixed in more late stage where you seem smart. Oh, Anthropic, but I just did it 2 weeks ago. So, but still, what I've found is like in the short time frame, you can get a liquidity event, and often it's like 3 to 5x, and so it's like great return for these late stage, even late stage kind of investments. Um, uh, um, in the early stages, then it's right team, right market, right time kind of considerations that you want to look for. It also helps if there's other credible investors in the deal, but there's obviously more risk, but hopefully more return. Time frame there is more 7 to 10 years, though.
So just the last question that I have, like at this point, now you've built different startups, you've exited the startups, you're not building a new one. What are some of your short-term and long-term goals over the next 5 to 10 years that you want to accomplish with Tomato AI?
Yeah. So our goal is to stay in the voice realm, but do a lot more things over time. Create this platform that does all this like A/B testing, finds the best voice for each conversation, play with the dimensions of voice with accent, and keep doing those kind of things. Have like a large library of voices that people can pick from, and then insert ourselves into as many different solutions out there as possible. So if you're just talking about the contact center space, you could be like a button you press if you have a Avaya, Genesis, Cisco, any one of the major VoIP providers. You can just like turn it on. So more seamless integration. If you expand to meetings, then like more partnerships with the Zooms of the world, where it's just available and seamlessly integrated. And so think we'll find adjacent markets and go deep through partnerships and have like more integrated kind of solutions.
That definitely sounds exciting, and I think that's the way to go is to integrate with places that need it. So I appreciate you coming on. I look forward to seeing what you're going to do next. I think this is a big problem to solve and could really it's a pain point, and could really help a lot of people. So keep going, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Ben, really good to chat with you today. Thanks so much.